Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the tech that's popping up everywhere, from your library's databases to your own search bar, artificial intelligence. Now, for us as information professionals, this isn't just another trend. It's a huge shift, and it brings up a really big question.
And this is the question, isn't it? It's kind of looming over the whole profession. When you hear AI-powered search, it's easy to get that little knot in your stomach. Is this tech a new tool for our belt, or is it a competitor that threatens the very heart of what we do? That concern is totally real, and it's based on some very, very valid arguments.
And let's be real, the arguments against AI in general are pretty serious. They usually break down into four big worries: the massive environmental footprint, the super thorny issue of copyright theft, the fact that its performance can be a total black box, and its potential to actually get in the way of real learning. These are not just vague fears, they're significant, well-founded problems.
But here's where we need to take a step back and ask something really important. What if the AI that's got us all worried isn't actually the AI that's doing the work here? What if the tech that's really driving the future of search is something else entirely?
To figure that out, we have to understand a little story I like to call a tale of two transformers. Because once you get this one key technical difference, it changes the entire conversation about AI in our world.
So the key technology we're talking about is called semantic search. You can think of it like this. Instead of just playing a game of keyword match, like a classic Boolean search, it actually tries to understand the meaning or the intent of your query. And it does this by turning words and documents into these special strings of numbers called vector embeddings.
Okay, so this right here is the absolute fork in the road for AI. On the right, you've got decoders. These are the models you hear about all the time: GPT, Gemini, Claude. Their one and only job is to predict the next word in a sequence, to generate new sentences. That's your chatbot AI. But over on the left, you've got encoders, like BERT. Their job isn't to write, it's to understand. They read text and distill its meaning down into that numerical representation, that vector embedding we just talked about. They don't generate words, they create a mathematical fingerprint of meaning. And that is exactly what you need to build a smarter search engine.
So here's how it plays out. First, during indexing, an encoder model reads every single document in a database and turns each one into its own unique vector. Then, when you type in a search, your query gets converted into its own vector. And finally, the system just does some math. It finds the document vectors that are closest to your query vector and says, hey, these are probably the most relevant results.
Simple as that.
All right, now that we've got this crucial difference straight, the AI that generates text versus the AI that understands meaning, let's go back to those four big arguments and look at them again with this new perspective.
First up, the environment. I mean, just look at this. The difference in scale is absolutely staggering. A big decoder model like GPT-3 has over 175 times billion parameters. That's huge. But a really effective encoder model, one used for search, can have as few as 22 million. Now, don't get me wrong, that's still more computing power than a keyword search, but it's not even in the same universe as those giant generative models.
Okay, next, copyright. This one's messy, no doubt about it. It's true, a lot of these models were trained on copyrighted data from the web. But there's a really important legal distinction to be made. Encoders only output numbers. They physically can't regenerate the original text. That probably puts them in a much stronger legal position than decoders, which absolutely can, and sometimes do, spit out copyrighted material word for word.
And this little detail creates a huge opportunity for us. The information scholar Aaron Tai put it perfectly. This shifts the librarian's role from passive consumer to active advocate for ethical AI. It means we can move beyond just using these tools and start asking the tough questions about how they're made.
So what about that fear that AI harms learning? You know, the worry that it just hands students an answer on a silver platter. Well, that's a real concern with generative AI. But semantic search doesn't do that. Its job is to improve relevance. It's a tool for finding a better needle in the haystack. It doesn't do the reading for the student, it just helps them find what to read. The risk of deskilling is just so much lower.
So, does all this mean that these encoder models are perfect? No, not at all. It just means we're dealing with a different set of problems.
We've kind of sidestepped the big flashy issues of generative AI, but now we're face to face with a new crop of challenges. They might be a bit subtler, but they are just as important for us to tackle.
And these new challenges, they are right in our professional wheelhouse. We're talking about biases that get baked in from the massive, unaudited datasets they're trained on. The total opacity of how those vector calculations work, it's a true black box. The results aren't always reproducible, which is a nightmare for things like systematic reviews. And the fact that these models can get a little lost when a search query is too different from their training data.
If you want to see how this changes our day-to-day, just think about the hit count. The hit count. For decades, that little number has been a core part of how we teach and refine search strategy. But semantic search completely obliterates it. It doesn't find a set of results. It just ranks every single document in the database by a similarity score. The entire concept of a hit count just vanishes, and a fundamental part of our search evaluation process vanishes right along with it.
But here's the beautiful part. These new, tricky problems, bias, opacity, reproducibility, this is exactly where our professional expertise is needed most. This defines our new mission, to stop being passive consumers of these tools and start being active, critical advocates for using them ethically and effectively.
So what does that actually look like? Well, it means we start asking those hard questions. We demand to know what data these models were trained on. We start championing the vendors who are being transparent and using ethically sourced data. And we advocate for them to build features that help us and our patrons deal with the bias and the reproducibility issues that are baked right into the system.
So, at the end of the day, the path forward isn't about just accepting or rejecting AI as this one big scary thing. It's about taking the time to understand the different kinds of technology that are all flying under that same banner, so we can make smart choices and champion the tools that actually align with our values as information professionals.
And really, that brings us to the most important takeaway. For librarianship, the question is no longer if we're going to use AI. That ship has sailed. The technology is here. The real crucial question is, which AI are we going to choose to build with? And how are we going to use our unique skills to shape it into something better, more transparent, and more equitable for everyone? Thanks for joining me.